The Maroons phone life right at the death. There was a costly blunder for the Lions, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about this goal. But we start one place and one place only, and that's at the Jerusalem Mini Stadium where the Junglists brought the house down. This is Match Week 38 Review Show. Yes, people, welcome back to JPL Fun. It was an intense Match Week 38, and I got the review and all the goals for you guys. Starting with the latest edition of the Classico. We will begin with the home team starting 11. Waterhouse only made one change, and that's replacing Elvis Wilson with the young Dashawn Bolt. As for Arnett guns, both Marlon Martin and Jamon Shepherd returned to the starting lineup, and so too Rashean Thompson after his goal last week. No, when the game started, it was an okay start by both teams as they each caused early trouble in the opposing box. But before the game could get into high gear, there was an early change for the home team as Leonardo Jibison unfortunately had to leave the game early due to injury. Youngster Dylan John came on, but again, both teams had plenty of enthusiasm but lacked quality in the final third. We had to wait some time for this magical moment from Dylan John to spark a Waterhouse attack, and it was unfortunate for the young man he could not finish the play. Arnett did respond well to the attack with a decent effort of their own off the boot of Marlon Martin. But it wouldn't be an El Clasico without some controversy. A look at this play right here. I am no VAR, but I was shocked this wasn't given, but the referee made up his mind pretty quickly. Maybe disputing there was no contact, and that would be the last major play before the halftime whistle. Waterhouse would go on and had a decent start to the second half, causing one and two nervy moments for Arnett, but eventually the Junglists would work their way back into the game and produce a great chance right here of some brilliant wing play, but a goal line blockage kept things level. But Waterhouse would retaliate with a massive chance of their own, hitting the crossbar with his header from Leonardo Thomas. The game was finally opening up. Waterhouse would keep up the pressure, and after Dylan John chipped another good ball to the back post, only to see said post and wall kept things at 0-0. And then they had another penalty shot, but this time I felt the referee got it just right. Sometime after that, to rub salt in the wounds, Arnett would go ahead and take the lead. Some good work by Harbour down the right hand side before whipping a good low cross into the 6-yard box to find Shai Smith to tap it home for the 1-0 scoreline. 1-0, and that goal came at the wrong time for the home team, who seemed to have all the momentum. After this, Arnett was hell-bent on crushing Firehouse and produced some good chances looking for the second, and they would finally find it in the 89th minute. A poor clearance saw the ball ending up with Taylor, who quickly played in Shai Smith once more, who calmly took it past Bernard for his and Arnett's second. 2-0, and that got the home crowd leaving early. Waterhouse would give up the fight after that, and the game would end moments later. So a tough loss for Firehouse Nation, but how was the game in terms of stats? Well, the Junglists eventually had more possession, 57% of the ball, and took more total shots in the end with 8. 5 of those were on target for Arnett and only 1 on target for Waterhouse. 100 dangerous attacks for the home team and 114 for the visitors. Alright, let's start with Arnett. They were given a good challenge by their hosts, but they persevered and got the goals at the right time, putting pressure on Mobe. Even more crucial, they're building back the confidence ahead of the playoffs. As for Waterhouse, it was a tough loss, but they can take heart in the fact that they played well. In fact, some would argue they had the better chances, but they lacked the extra quality and luck they needed in the end. Anyway, once more it finishes. Waterhouse 0, Arnett Gardens 2. So while Waterhouse was losing, their rivals for the last playoff spot, Tivoli Gardens, was in a desperate struggle of their own versus Capital Maroons. Here's the first 11 for the Maroons. Prince Daniel Smith returns in goal, and both Jamari Hoyle and Daniel Watson return as well. As for Tivoli Gardens, Barton Price is surprisingly missing, as Malik Cockins replaces him as the only change to Jerome Wade's squad. It was a positive start by the Maroons as they settled the faster of the two teams. However, by the 9th minute, the Maroons would find themselves behind somehow. A good corner swung in from the right, and Javel Ellis applied a real striker's finish into his own net. 1-0 to Tivoli as they revel in their own luck. That goal seemed to free Tivoli of the pressure as they started to play their game and created 1 and 2 looks at goal, while the Maroons, well, let's just say they were doing everything to remain in the contest. And if you thought that was impressive, look at this excellent defensive clearance to deny Lennox Russell right here, as Tivoli were getting closer and closer for a second. But they needed goals as well, Chapperton, and they managed to scuffle together this opening in the box, but the shot went just over the bar. Remember, Tivoli also need 3 points just as bad, and we're going forward looking for the second, but we're denied only by the post from this fuller shot. But it would be the Maroons to end the half with the best chance for a goal, but Clark's recent stellar form in the Tivoli's net continued and left it 1-0 at the break. Second half now, and the Maroons started with great urgency and purpose, and they will be later rewarded after Kevin Garnett somehow managed to hand the ball in his own box. Captain Osani Ricketts decided to take it, but again, Clark is on great form and managed to save it and keep Tivoli leading. And they would extend that lead in the 68th minute. Alton Lewis will make his way down to the byline before whipping a ball into the 6-yard box, where informed Lennox Russell would ghost in ahead of his marker to get the ball into the back of the net. 2-0, and you would think there was no coming back for the Maroons. But the lead would be cut in half only 4 minutes later. The Maroons got their own corner from the right hand side, and youngster Dustin Cohen would be on the other end of it to give his team a lifeline. What we will get next was a nice back and forth game as both teams was looking for the next goal in the match. But we and the Maroons had to wait all the way to the 94th minute for another goal. Another set piece from the same right hand side was floated in, and Orel Miller rose highest to nod it home and cue the mass celebrations on the team's bench. 2-2 and a massive goal that could save their season. The final whistle come right after that as the points were shared. So a nice match, but how was the game in terms of stats? Well, Chapperton had 47% of possession while Tivoli had 53%. The Maroons made 10 attempts at goal while Tivoli made 12. 4 shots on target for Chapperton while 3 on target for Tivoli. 78 dangerous attacks to the home team and 72 to the visitors. Alright, we are starting with Tivoli here, with Waterhouse losing. That 94th minute goal would really hurt, of course. But they are now back in 6th place nonetheless, and they will hope keep it like that this time next week. As for the Maroons, real gusty performance that was, especially in the second half. They are not safe yet, but that point may prove to be precious. Anyway, once again it ended. Chapperton Maroons 2, Tivoli Gardens 2. Now, onto our next match, where the Stars of the East knew they just had to win against the already relegated Vere Phoenix United. In terms of the starting lineup for the home team, well, Anthony Bennett kept his spot in goal. There was a change in centre back as Gavin Burton comes in, and Colorado Murray would be the man leading the line. As for Vere Phoenix United, young Sean Layton comes into the team, so too does Ryan Gorzong, and Kyle Butler started on the bench. Now, when the game started, it was a very fast start by Vere actually, and they even got a good chance at goal in the opening minutes. They were even looking fairly well, coming at the Harbour back line and causing 1 and 2 scares. But they were absolutely naive at the back, and eventually they would turn over the ball numerous times to let Harbourview into the game. And with that momentum, Harbourview would find the opening goal. Again, some sloppy work in the defensive line by Vere, saw a good cross whipping from the right hand side. It bypassed everybody in the 6-yard box, but he found the late arriving Trayvon Reed at the back post, who hit it against one of the Vere defenders and it went into the back of the net. 1-0 to Harbourview, and immediately you could see the pressure was now off, because after that the game was now theirs as they kept up the pressure and was now coming at Vere in droves. And if they were a little bit cleaner on some of their finishing, they would get the second much earlier. But they didn't have to wait too long as they will find the second in the 23rd minute. Trayvon Reed lined up a free kick here on the left hand side, and what seemed to come straight from the training ground, he played a low cross to the penalty box to find a free Timor Lewis, who cracked one at the goal and saw it hit the underside of the bar and bounced down and then back out. Now, I initially thought it was a close one and it did went in, but the referees that were there much closer than I was, of course, gave the goal, and now the Stars of the East were now 2 up. After that, Vere tried to get back into the game, but it was more down to small individual brilliance than anything cohesive from the team, and then Lenny Hyde decided that he has to change something and decided to take out Michael Forbes and brought in his best player Roberto Gordon to play up front in a new 3-5-2 system. But it didn't help much. Harbour kept the better of the chances, and eventually they would find that third goal right before half time. With all the time in the world right here, they floated across from the left hand side, and then with all the space in the world in the penalty box, Timothy Lewis was able to get a one-time volley off the post and into the back of the net. 3-0, and clearly Harbour and their fans were in dreamland. That was practically the last kick of the first half. Second half now, and Lenny Hyde decided to make more changes. He did eventually brought on the likes of Kyle Butler into the game, and it seemed it was working for the opening 10 minutes. They caused some good chances as they tried their best to come into the game, especially this one right here that brought out a great save from Bennett to keep things at 3. But any chance of a comeback would be crushed at the 61st minute. With this free kick right here, we're just outside the box. Trayvon Reed, whose deliveries has been on point all game long, decided to take it, of course, and he would beat Harrison from this distance with this curler and into the back of the net. 4-0 for the Stars of the East, as they look nothing like the team that we've been struggling for goals the last couple of weeks. From there, I guess the Vere players decided they're just going to enjoy their football, and they had some decent attacks coming forward, but again, they just couldn't really muster anything to get past Bennett and into the back of the net. While Harbour, with this massive lead, decided to give debuts to a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old from their academy. And both of those players would go on to become instant stars. Look at this great play right here from youngster Tyreek Robinson, who come in and cut in on his left before cracking this magnificent shot past Harrison and off the crossbar and into the back of the net. It was an eye-opening goal from the 16-year-old, and that's a way to announce yourself in the JPL. 5-0, and Harbour are simply just untouchable at this moment. Again, after that, Vere just seemed that they were desperate to get a consolation and threw bodies up, especially here on the set piece. But of course, it was too many players forward, and Harbour had a big chance to counter through the other youngster Kevon McGregor, who carried the ball all the way down the left-hand side into the penalty box before opening up his hips and getting the ball past Harrison and into the back of the net. 6-0, and Harbour were making a statement against the other relegation-threatened teams. Vere, of course, didn't have much response to say to that goal, and game will finally end moments after. So, probably their best game of the season by the Stars of the East, but how was the game in terms of stats? Well, no surprise, they had more possession, they had 69% compared to Vere's 31%. Look at the total shots now. Harbour managed 22 compared to 12 from Vere. 12 shots on target for the Stars of the East and 4 shots on target for Vere Phoenix United. 67 dangerous attacks for Harbour and 36 dangerous attacks for Vere. Alright, I just have to start with Vere first because, my God, that was a shocking performance and one of the worst I've seen all season long. I know they're already relegated, but there's such a thing as pride, and they simply did not show up today. Even the usually consistent Matthew Ling were just simply terrible on the day. As for Harbour, they couldn't ask for anything better. Not only did they get the necessary 3 points that they would need, but that 6-goal swing would be massive for them in the goal difference. Harbour fans, I think you no longer have to worry. I think your club is safe. But anyway, once again it ended. Harbour 6, Vere Phoenix United 0. Now, if Harbour are particularly safe, Humble Lion will need to get past Racing to keep up the pressure. In terms of the starting lineup for Racing, well, it's a younger than usual team for Anthony Patrick, with the likes of Matthew Martin, Michael Williams, and Anton Rule all coming into the squad. As for the Lions, they made 2 changes as Jay Jebison and DeAndre Brown both came into the 11. Now, when the game started, no surprise, the Lions started better and had good spells of pressure in the early stages. Stephen Barnett in particular was looking determined to get something going for his team. But this young Racing team were holding their own as both teams basically was cancelling on each other. No one was really producing anything of note in the final third, although Racing really should have done better on this breakaway. But a point is no good to Humble Lion, of course, and they will need a goal from somewhere. Up stepped their main marksman, Stephen Barnett. In the 42nd minute, a corner was floated in which the racing team failed to deal with, and it fell to Arnett, who bundled it home to give the Lions a crucial lead before half-time. Second half, Racing looked a lot better and almost found the equalizer early, but Nikhil Ellis probably opted for the wrong side of the goal right here. But they kept up the pressure and came at Humber Lion, producing some decent looks at goal, while the Lions also had some decent half chances at the other end. And just when it looked like there would be no more goals in this match, Racing got a lucky break with his handball in the box. Captain Ellis would take it and bury it to give his team the equalizer. Now, I did state a point wasn't much help to the Lions, but it's better than nothing. But someone forgot to tell their goalkeeper Glenroy Samuels, who mishandled this cross so badly in the 96th minute that it ended up in the back of his own net. An absolute horror show for the usually good goalkeeper and his club chances of survival. So a heartbreaker for Humber Lion, but how was the game in terms of stats? Well, both teams were even 50-50 in possession, but Racing had more total shots with 11 to Humber Lion's 8. 5 on target for Racing and 1 on target for the Lions. 1 corner to the home team and 4 for the visitors. Okay, we will start with the Lions. What a horrid time for a goalkeeper error, but outside of that, the Lions honestly did not do enough in that second half for you to think their JPL lives were on the line. Now they will have to find a way to be more pleasant at home. As for Racing, they had nothing to play for and it showed. But credit to the youngsters, they got the win in the end nonetheless. So again, it ended Racing United 2, Humber Lion 1. With that loss, a win at home in the Portmore derby for Dumbo Holding would mean that they are now safe. In terms of the starting lineup for the home team, Coach Earl Thomas only made 1 change as Tyrese Winter was replaced by Nakili Wright. As for Portmore United, well, Russell comes back in goal over Williams, Colonel Benbow was back in the attack, and Siegel Knight was back in midfield. Now, as per usual for Dumbo Holding home matches, I have no footage of the match itself or reports to work with. But I do have the goal. It came in the 50th minute. A Dumbo Holding set piece was floated into the box. Portmore did well on the initial clearance, but Dumbo Holding would keep the play alive before Damian Binns would play in Dwight Merrick in on goal. But his shot was well saved by Russell, but a rebound fell to Binns, who finished well to give his home team the lead, 1-0. And that's all they would need as they got 3 points in the Portmore derby. So again, not much here to work with, but hopefully the stats paint a better picture. Well, Dumbo Holding dominated possession with 58%, but total shots were closer, with the home team only making 5 and Portmore making 4. 3 shots were on target for Dumbo Holding and only 1 on target for Portmore. 36 dangerous attacks for the home team and 20 dangerous attacks for visitors. Well, as stated, I didn't see the match, but Portmore only having 1 shot on target for 90 minutes further highlights how anemic their attack is looking going into the playoffs. As for Dumbo Holding, with Humber Lion losing and they now having 37 points, it's job done and they can relax on the final day. So once again, this one ended Dumbo Holding 1, Portmore United 0. Now we return our attention back to the race for second as Montego United hosted Cavalier. Here was the starting 11 for the home team. They made 2 changes as both Jordan Fletcher and Johan Weatherly came in and replaced Demario Phillips and Captain Owen Garden respectively. As for the defending champions, O'Neal Bryan makes a rare appearance. Carly Avery got the start on the wing, but Dwayne Allen was given a much needed rest. Now when the game started, things were a bit cagey, but Mobe looked the better. In fact, as the half went on, they were the ones looking more likely to find the game's opening goal, all leading to this powerful run up the middle of the park from former Cavalier player Chanel Thomas, which would eventually saw the ball at the feet of Brian Brown, whose snapshot drew Bartlett into making a good save down to his left. A surprise to no one, Cavalier looked their best on the few transitional plays they managed, but the Montego Bay defense was well organized to snuff out any real danger. And right before the half ended, it would be Brian Brown again drawing Bartlett into making another save, so it ended 0-0 at the break. Second half, it was more of the same from the home team, and they would propel that into finding the game's opening goal. Jordan Fletcher was played in with a ball from over the top, and he raced in on goal, one-on-one with Bartlett, before coolly slotting it past him and into the back of the net. 1-0 Mobe as they made their dominance count. And they weren't satisfied with just the one goal, as they would keep up their attacks, but Cavalier would weather the storm and actually had the better of the play towards the end of the game, but no one in white would go on and find the equalizer. The final whistle will be blown, giving all 3 points to the men from West. So a decent game, but let's now look at the stats. Mobe had more possession with 56%. They also made more total shots with 10 to Cavalier's 8. Only 3 on target for the home team, while Mobe had 2 on target. 41 dangerous attacks to the home team and 44 to the visitors. With second place still up for grabs, it felt as if Mobe wanted this win a little bit more. And with these two teams possibly meeting again in the semi-finals at the same venue, nonetheless, this result may prove psychologically advantageous in the coming weeks. As for Cavalier, they may have been tired from playing on Thursday and then the long travel, so I'm sure Coach Rudolph's speed is not too shaken by this result. But anyway, speaking of the result, again the match ended. Montego Bay 1, Cavalier 0. Now onto our final game, where the league leaders More Pleasant was looking to end their last game at home in style versus Molynes United. In terms of the starting lineup for the home team, after his wonder strike on Thursday, Odin Pennycook kept his spot. We will get another good look at Angelo Exelos, and finally, Siobhan Walsh gets a start after being out so long due to injury. As for Molynes United, coach Jermaine Thomas made 2 changes. Out were Jason Wright and Nicky Shea Murray, and in were Maria McPherson and Michael Graham. Now, when the game started, Molynes were actually more the team on the front foot. It took More Pleasant some time to settle, but when they finally did, they carved out this huge chance for Devonta Campbell at the back post, but he steered his attempt wide. But they would take the lead moments after that anyway. From a corner, the ball was floated in and Pennycook met it with a decent header that went straight to Darren Denai, but the St. Lucian fumbled a routine catch into his own net. 1-0 to More Pleasant and poor goalkeeping from Molynes. But they responded very well to going down and conjuring up 2 great chances, but they should have done better, especially that last one by Michael Graham. From there, apart from a few bright plays from Green and Exelos, there will be no more major goal scoring opportunities in either final third before the halftime break. Second half, and the tempo was pretty quick from both teams before More Pleasant started to settle once again. And then they would extend their lead in the 55th minute. A free kick just outside the box, and Daniel Green looked like he was trying to float a simple one into the box, but he somehow caught the eye out and got into the back of the net. 2-0, and it came way too easy for the home team. Molynes coach Jermaine Thomas responded with 2 attacking subs, bringing on Jason Wright and Nicky Shea Murray, and it almost paid dividend immediately as Tariq Wilson brought Chambers into making a good save. Topper Whitmore responded as well by bringing on a few academic kids, and one of them would get his name on the score sheet moments after. 15-year-old Selassie played a neat give and go with Howell before he opened his body up to coolly finish past the 9 for More Pleasant third goal of the match. 3-0, and that's the game essentially wrapped up. More Pleasant would go on looking for a fourth, but didn't manage to find another, while Molynes would get themselves a penalty to salvage a consolation. But young Siobhan Miller decided to blast this penalty into orbit, and Chambers' clean sheet was preserved. The game would end not too long after that. So an easy win in the end for the league leaders, but how was the game in terms of stats? Well, no surprise, More Pleasant had more of the ball, and no surprise, they had more attempts. 8 shots on target for the home team and only 1 on target for the visitors. 63 dangerous attacks for More Pleasant and 45 for Molynes United. Alright, let's start with Molynes United. It was always going to be difficult to get a result at Drax Hall, regardless of who suited up for the home team. So they just have to forget about this one and get the job done versus Cavalier in their last match. As for More Pleasant, the future looks bright with a lot of their academy players giving debuts this season, and they have all done well. there's still one more game remaining to give them a look before the business end of the season. So finally, it ended Mount Pleasant 3, Molynes United 0. So we had an interesting match week 38 with many big results impacting the table. Speaking of the table, Mount Pleasant still leads, of course, with 90 points from their 38 games played. Montego looking to solidify their second place with 75 points. Arnett is keeping pace though with 73 points in third. Cavalier have 4 players to themselves with 66 points. Portmore is in 5th with 63. And Cavalier are back in the top 6 with 55 points from 38 games played. Waterhouse are temporarily out of the top 6 in 7th with 55 points as well, but less goal difference. Racing are in 8th with 51 points. Dumbo are back up into 9th with 37 points. Harbour are in 10th with 36 points. Molynes dropped to 11th with 35 points. Chaperton remain 1 point ahead of the danger zone with 34 points. And Milan will need to win and hope the gods favor them on the final day to get out of relegation. Alright guys, that's all I got for the second to last round of fixtures in this JPL season. Thank you all for watching, and please like, subscribe and share as we look to keep you all up to date on what's going on in the JPL leading up to the final in May. Otherwise, for great JPL content, you're already at the right place, JPL Fan. YouTube, big up yourself.